No matter which form of media you're talking about, sooner or later you're going to see Godzilla fight this three-headed dragon entity monster kaiju Ghidorah, right? They got a legendary rivalry. You gotta have them fight. Even in the anime trilogy, they had to find an excuse to bring Ghidorah in. Let's get into it. First off, it can do stuff like literally drain Godzilla. You see his heat deteriorate because of Ghidorah. They even talk about how Godzilla's cooling down, so he has Haxi abilities like being able to drain. Godzilla dropped below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, guys. Oh boy, this is one of those confusing type characters if you're not used to this kind of stuff. He's like a higher dimensional cosmic being. Let me break it down for you. Yeah, guys, I know this is a lot of deep diving and critical thinking, but when all this is translated, talking about the lore, they talk about that this is a being, is an entity that transcends the three-dimensional universe we perceive. Gate to a higher realm beyond the existing universe. They talk about Ghidorah in this universe as somebody that's way more of a scarier threat than Godzilla. Stated he's a being that has greater destructive power. Even compared to Godzilla, it's not even worth fearing Godzilla in comparison to Ghidorah. Due to his nature, that's probably why his shadow alone can attack beings. Ghidorah is constantly referred to as a god. Right here. He's called a divine being. They mention the word divinity. So think of it like this. The Ghidorah we see in this movie is technically not even his truest glory, one could say, despite it being really powerful and being made of pure energy, basically. Think of it like a real life Marvel Comics person like Stan Lee, the legend, of course. Think of him like this. He's a real life being that created fictional universes, but he himself has appeared in these fictional universes because he made a comic book avatar of himself so he can fit in these little universes. Because he can't actually physically go in them universes. He can just make an avatar himself that can fit in these universes. And that's what we see Stan Lee in Marvel Comics do from time to time. Now, I know this video isn't about Marvel Comics. This is just a quick example of what I'm talking about. This relates to Ghidorah being a higher dimensional being. Hold with me for a second. Think of this like with Ghidorah. Like the true Ghidorah that we never see is out here, but he's got to interact with the universe somehow. So Godzilla's interacting with somebody that's technically bigger than everything. I'm gonna get back to that though, but this is kind of the same concept. Like this Ghidorah is like controlling these little smaller pieces of himself from out somewhere else in a higher dimension. It's actually talked about how Ghidorah is from another universe. They couldn't understand why their equipment couldn't pick up Ghidorah even though they could visually see what was going on. Like he's a being that's so crazy and mighty that he's literally breaking physics. The laws of our world don't apply to it. Its physical attacks are from another dimension. They even call him, when it comes to the dimension he's from, Ghidorah, the king of the void. That's the higher dimension he's from. So this is where it gets really confusing because a lot of people have a hard time imagining something being greater than infinite. The universe that Ghidorah is from is actually bigger than infinite. That's where we get into that higher dimensional stuff. He's such a higher dimensional being that in order for him to interact with this smaller dimensional world or universe, he has to make portals or black holes in order to interact with this universe. That's how we see him fighting Godzilla here. I mean, we see it happen visually of a black hole coming out of nowhere, a singularity. And this is how Ghidorah is actually interacting with everybody. And this is how we see him interact with people, like through these black holes, like literal portals to interact with smaller dimensional beings. Yeah, you see it? Long head. He makes these portals to enter, and that's where you see the yellow him fighting Godzilla. But even though his true form is out here, he actually makes literal black holes themselves, implying that he's probably an energy manipulator. Like, yeah, I already showed this, but yeah, his physical attacks are coming from a different universe, another dimension. You're probably thinking, well, if he's so powerful, why doesn't he just destroy the universe? Well, think of it like this, guys. I know this can get a little confusing, but hold with me for a second. If he's so powerful, why can't he just destroy the universe and be done with it? Let me go back to my Marvel Comics example right quick. You know how Stan Lee's the writer and stuff? He's the creator of these universes, these fictional universes. No matter how strong these beings get in these universes, they can never be bigger than him. He's a real life being. He's actually for real. He's above them. He's a higher dimensional being in comparison to them. No matter what they do, he will always be higher than them in higher dimensionality and stuff. He's above them. He's real. They're not real. Okay, so think of this concept like this, right? If he wanted to, he can just destroy all of this, right? So you're probably wondering, if Ghidorah is big like this, why can't he just destroy the universe like this? Well, think of it like this. Stan Lee's a real life person, but so are real life beings. But these beings don't have the permission to delete the entire comic universe like he does. Even though they're both real life people, they're technically both higher dimensional beings. Marvel Comics is fake. They're real. Technically, a real life person even technically would have the raw power to destroy everything. They have the raw power. They just don't have the permission, one could say. I guess you can look at it like a permission thing when it comes to Ghidorah. Ghidorah has the raw power to destroy the entire universe, but he doesn't have the permission to enter or interact with the universe without some help from inside the universe. If that makes sense. Does that make sense to you? It might sound contradictory. If somebody this strong, why can't he just blow it up? He's a comic writer, real life person. She's a real life person, not a comic writer. She doesn't have the permission to destroy the whole universe, even though she technically has the raw power to because she's a real human too. You see what I mean? That's kind of how it is for Ghidorah. He has to make these black holes to interact, and he has to get like a doorway from the beings inside the universe to be able to interact with them. Even though he's technically strong enough to just blow it up from here, he just doesn't have the access or permission to, if that makes sense. That's the best way I can think of to even explain it. Regardless if you have the permission or not to destroy a universe or not, that doesn't mean you can't with your raw power or just size. I guess if you want to be nitpicky, you can kind of look at this like a sort of a weakness, one could say. Like he has all this power, but he can't use it on the universe because he doesn't have access, even though he technically is stronger and higher dimensional, you know? Like that's the best way I can explain it. Like these beings, these humans were kind of the gate people for a doorway so Ghidorah's eyes can see everything in this universe or interact with this universe. Even though he's higher dimensional, he still needed their help to some degree, but that doesn't change his power level of him actually being higher dimensional. Right here, it mentioned what I just said. He has to enter his world via some observation. Someone is acting as Ghidorah's eyes and watching Godzilla. That's why I say these beings, these humans in this world have to be a passageway to this higher being to be able to see or interact within this world successfully, despite him being higher dimensional. The Ghidorah we see interact with Godzilla doesn't have a physical form, stated. But yeah, remember earlier how I mentioned black hole stuff? Yeah, let's get back to that real quick. We can kind of get an idea of his destructive capacity. Even if we're not even talking about his true self we never really see, we can kind of get an idea of the bare minimum strength of him by the fact he can literally create black holes out of freaking nowhere to interact with everybody. So, and by the way, guys, these are real black holes, by the way they interact with planets, space-time bending, singularity type black hole, like the stuff we're used to when it comes to black holes in physics. See, when we get into this higher dimensional stuff, they start breaking physics and stuff starts not making sense scientifically because they operate on a higher plane. Even the human people say this kind of stuff is impossible and unexplainable. Just in case you're wondering if some of this math ain't math, and that's why. When you're a higher dimensional being, the laws of physics don't apply really. Like the black holes Ghidorah can literally make have literally swallowed up a planet and destroyed it, guys. Yeah, so pretty much any planet you can think of, black holes usually can mess up stars and stuff. He can more than likely destroy stars just in case those are curious. The black hole literally destroyed a planet in the first movie caused by Ghidorah, Black Hole's generation. Ghidorah, when we're talking about information like this that ends up getting translated, information that's released about this movie, they talk about Ghidorah has consumed and destroyed thousands of planets with its supergravity. So yeah, he can definitely destroy planets. Not to mention Godzilla Earth can literally destroy planets in this universe. And we've seen these blasts get curved thanks to Ghidorah. Gravitational type stuff. Bending his particle beams. Ghidorah. Oh, thousands of planets and stars with its supergravity. So you can definitely destroy a lot of stars. His gravity manipulation stuff is so absurd. Beings as heavy as Godzilla, who has to weigh at least 1 million tons, float. Reality was starting to warp or bend. They even talk about reality eroding. Ghidorah has a history of just destroying planets. Like there was this particular race in general that like worship Ghidorah and stuff. Yeah, they've seen the different planets get wiped out, get sacrificed to Ghidorah. It was literally stated that he would not only destroy Godzilla, stated here, but he would destroy this planet. The Earth itself will be consumed, implying Ghidorah was going to destroy the world. And this is just freaking cheating. He can hurt Godzilla, but he can't hit Ghidorah because he's pure energy right here. No physical form, like I already brought up. This goes back to the fact that he's a higher dimensional being. Like stuff that doesn't make sense is starting to happen. It's a contradiction. Like they're literally breaking physics. Even the writers are aware that being a higher dimensional being breaks physics. A lot of contradiction. They talk about it here. Power breaks all physics laws. When this madness right here gets translated, this is probably the biggest breaking physics crap I've ever seen. They talk about how common sense isn't common. Destroying planets and things like that or stars is just the tip of the iceberg for Ghidorah, because if these people in this movie didn't save the day fast enough, he would eventually just destroy the universe itself. Like they even stated that this being known as Ghidorah, he shall consume all, devour all. They're implying like the universe. You got more information like this that pretty much confirm what I've been saying, taken from this movie, that he is a high dimensional monster called higher dimensional. Yeah, they was literally talking about that the universe was about to be the end if they didn't stop this stuff. Like the universe was literally about to be a sacrifice for him. They was about to destroy it all with Ghidorah. And apparently compared to Ghidorah, the universe is finite compared to his might. Stated via translations to be higher dimensional monster. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into these characters' religions, but using their religion mumbo jumbo with the crystal, they was trying to resonate to communicate with higher dimensional monsters, Ghidorah. You see, how many statements do you all need when they're talking about Ghidorah being a higher dimensional extraterrestrial entity? He's a being that's so massive and his glory is too mighty, he's not meant to operate on Earth. Higher dimensional Ghidorah. It's a one-sided meal. Like there's a gap between this universe version of Ghidorah and Godzilla when all this stuff was translated. Translated here, higher dimensional. Being a higher dimensional type being, he's unfathomably large. Technically, he should be bigger than the infinite size universe. Even if it's finite, being bigger than trillions of galaxies is still absurdly large. But yeah, if we assume this universe is actually infinite, that would mean he's bigger than an actual infinite size of the universe. I mean, he's higher dimensional. He's actually bigger than infinity. These concepts most people can't understand. It just seems like it breaks physics. Because it does. This character breaks physics. He's higher dimensional. Yeah, this race of beings actually made contact thanks to their calculations and equipment with higher dimensional beings. To further knock home that, yeah, when they say higher dimensional, guys, they literally mean an infinite size being, a being bigger than the actual universe. Because in the official guide of the Godzilla, official guide to the King of the Monsters, a lot of different types of content is brought up. The different eras and different Godzilla and other media content is even in this too. They talk about Ghidorah of this universe. It basically says the stuff we already seen in the film, so it shows that this guide is really talking about this same Ghidorah. They use the terms extra dimensional with infinitely long heads, infinitely. And in the same guidebook about this, they mention the word infinite more than once. Yeah, he's a higher dimensional being. Did you ever imagine there was a Ghidorah out there that was a higher dimensional being that's literally, quite literally bigger than the universe itself? I mean, technically his true form we never really got to see is bigger than galaxies. Like, he's beyond infinite mass. They talk about his head is like infinitely long. If you tried to measure the length of a universe versus Ghidorah, Ghidorah would be longer than the infinite size cosmos. Like, that's crazy to think about something being too big to fit in the universe because their length. What are your thoughts on Ghidorah? Do you think this is too over the top? Yeah, this is an extra dimensional, higher dimensional Ghidorah that made Godzilla like a germ in comparison to him, basically. Having to make black holes to even interact with him, to interact with a lower plane of existence. There's even implications that King Ghidorah could shake the very heavens themselves. And he was a being that was going to devour all. But what do you guys think? Ghidorah and Godzilla agree. You should hit that like button for me real quick. It would really help out a lot. Thanks for the donations, everybody. Respect this King of the Void Ghidorah. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.